My name is Jeffrey Gaspard, and I'm the 2018 chair for the 18th Gas Utilization Topical here in Orlando, Florida. I'm speaking with Lee Nichols, Hydrocarbon Processing, and Sanjeev Kapur, AIChE PetroConsultants. Lee and Sanjeev are panelists from today's Fuels and Petrochemicals panel discussion on shale gas and oil in North America. Lee and Sanjeev, welcome.
Thanks.
In the panel, we've looked at new and updated forecasts for projects and production in North America and the impact of these projects and production may have on the global market and prices. Sanjeev, you mentioned the uncertainty of methanol demand. Would you please touch on this from your perspective?
Methanol demand in general, we were never using in 2010 for any other application than the conventional uses of methanol. So it was not used for ethylene production or propylene production purposes. Since then, China has built a lot of units which are using methanol to convert that into propylene or olefins. And that demand is increasing. It's going to go up to about 18 million metric ton by 2021. But it's not very economical in terms of the pricing as compared to the naphtha cracking at the current crude energy dynamic pricing. So we will see a slowdown in the demand and may not be, all the units are not running at capacity either. So that's the general trend we see in the industry at this point.
If oil prices were to rise or fall, would that impact the economics for MTO?
It will, but China has in general slowed down on new build methanol-based olefin facilities. So we don't think there will be new capacity coming online, but the existing units, if the oil prices move up, they may become economical. They may move in the cost of production curve in a more suitable place to be economical.
Thank you. Lee, tell me a bit about the perspectives of HP's box score publication and its ongoing projects to further evaluate energy supply chain and economics.
Okay, absolutely. So for some people who are not familiar with the Hydrocarbon Processing Construction Box Score database, it's been a database that's been going around since about 1946 is when we started it. And what it does is it tracks projects being built at a refinery, petrochemical plant, LNG terminal, gas processing facility. I think when it started back in 1946, I think they just drove down to LaPorte and saw, oh, who's building something? Let's start there. So, but it's actually grown into a global database. We're tracking over 1,700 projects worldwide. Total capex about $1.8 trillion in downstream assets. And those are projects that have been announced or they're on some form of the project's engineering construction time frame. So that's kind of what Box Score does. It allows different companies to see who's building what, where, the scope of it, why they're building it, capacities, capital expenditures, who's involved in the projects, things like that. So it's a great tool to use, especially when you want to track things like capital expenditures and projects moving forward in the industry.
Now, if a project does move forward and say is finalized and becomes operational, do you continue tracking that in a different area? Or say they wanted to expand, say a couple years happen and they want to expand, is a new project created or is it just moved back into the
Right, correct. So what we do is we have an archive database that has all of the projects that have been completed. And so we do have those assets already involved. Now, if they do any other type of project with at that certain site, we will take it out of the archives and we will track it. So if it's some type of expansion project, debottleneck, whatever it is, yes, we'll take it out of our archives and then we track that specific project at that location. And then, of course, all that's included in the scope area. So a user can go in and they can see everything that's been built within that specific location or that specific unit moving forward. And, of course, subscribers can also look at the archive information as well. So if you want to put together some type of market analysis on a certain process around the globe, you can do that too. So it allows a lot of different ways to use the resource.
Is a lot of the information in the box score, is this user or I guess a client supplied, or is this confidential, or is this just merely reading investor websites
Right.
and saying, hey, they've announced?
Well, a lot of it is we go through people's trash cans. No, I'm kidding. We don't do that. I'm just kidding. No, so a lot of we're basically an aggregator. So we get it from all sorts of different sources. We get it from we're subscribers to dozens and dozens of different company wires. So we get a lot of information that way. We get it from financial statements from different companies, public companies, of course. And then, of course, we get them. We get information from different news reports. That stuff, of course, we follow up on. We're not going to trust a specific, say, newspaper in a region that mentions some type of project. We will follow up to make sure that's it. But of course, if it's from a specific company, we'll go ahead and publish that information. So it's all public knowledge.
Okay. Sanjeev, what are the key insights that you would like your audience to take away from today's panel discussion?
I would say it's the most exciting time in our industry. If you go back 10 years from now, nobody believed that we will have petrochemical built in the US Gulf Coast and the US in general. So shale developments really changed the landscape completely. Now everyone wants to build here, and we have advantage feedstock, and we expect that to continue for many years to come, because the dynamics between crude oil and the gas pricing is such that gas pricing we think are going to stay very stable for next 15, 20, 25 years. But the crude will fluctuate as we go along. So we think we have a competitive advantage in US, and that's what you see, the second wave of crackers being built, more petrochemical facilities, derivative units coming on stream, and growth will continue. So everyone who is looking to join this industry, this is the time.
If, from my understanding, one major impact to gas utilization or petrochemical use in the United States would be natural gas, as you just touched on, low prices. If LNG were to take off and start consuming more natural gas, causing natural gas prices to rise, would that have a negative impact on U.S. development?
At the moment, no. In general, you will see that if LNG becomes commodity similar way as the crude oil is, so at some point there could be level playing field with respect to LNG pricing worldwide. Currently, the natural gas pricing in Asia, for example, dropped from $14 to $15 per million BTU to $6 to $8 range. Still, there is a differential. US is in the $2 to $3 range per million BTU. So we think that US advantage will continue at least for next 15 to 25 years. Now, whether it changes with the large flow of LNG, it's yet to be seen.
Lee, what role do you see chemical engineers changing in the future with respect to shale oil and gas?
Well, I see them being instrumental in this industry. The main reason why is because, as Sanjeev said, we're seeing an incredible amount of petrochemical capacity being built, not just in the U.S., but all over the globe. And the people who are coming up with those technologies and developing those technologies are your chemical engineers. I mean, they're going to be at the forefront of making products that are advancing the world into modern day life. So they're going to play an integral role, and to tell you the truth, we need a lot more of them. Just the amount of capacity that we're seeing being built is absolutely just incredible. And petrochemical, when we look at oil demand, the most demand from oil over the next few years is actually going to come from petrochemicals. I mean, they're going to need that as feedstock to develop different plastics, things like that. So if you're a chemical engineer now, it's a great time to be in this industry, because it is a growth industry, and it's going to be a growth industry well into the mid-2020s at least. So we're definitely going to need the chemical engineers, and we're going to need a lot more of them.
Many young chemical engineers are attending today's meeting. To wrap up, what advice would you like to share to some of the young professionals who are looking to work in these industries? Sanjeev, we'll start with you and we'll finish up with you, Johnny.
Well, my advice will be, I started my career in 1980 as a young chemical engineer when the industry was going through a very bad patch. And over 35 plus years, I've seen multiple cycles of ups and downs. It doesn't bother me. In fact, it encourages me to keep going in this industry. We are doing so much good to uplift the normal standard of living. So we should continue down that path and have the passion to change the world and change it for better. We have to focus on sustainability. We have to focus on recycling. There are a lot of new technologies which have been enabled by petrochemicals. And I think that that trend will continue. So that my advice will be, this is the time to join the industry. We have seen a little bit of a gap in the last 10-15 years. A lot of people are retiring, but the young generation is not coming in. So we want to attract more and more people, basically giving them the real reasons behind it. What we are doing is contributing towards the human development.
Lee?
For me, I think a lot of it depends on how you look at what the end game is. I think a lot of people lose sight of how they're actually impacting not just themselves, but the rest of the world. I mean, chemical engineers, they might need to think that the projects that they're working on right now is developing products that is uplifting billions of people around the world. You know, you might just think, oh, I'm working on this project and we're doing this, we're making this polyethylene or whatever, making some type of special chemical, not knowing that chemical might be going into something that saves someone's life later down the road. So I think you have to look at what you're building and what that's actually going to. And what I can see from what's being developed in this industry is going for a greater good. I mean, you're uplifting billions of people, you're making life-saving equipment, you're making something we use for everyday life that you just don't think about, you know? So I think, like I said, and I like to end on it, it's a great time to be in this industry. And for the young chemical engineer, you just have to look at, these are the products I'm creating, and basically I'm making the world a better place.
Thank you much. I've been speaking with this year's F&PD panelists, Lee and Sanjeev. Thank you very much for being part of our spring meeting and sharing your ideas with AIChE and the connected community. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.